Shout out to the Before the Billions. His favorite term. You got the number one spot. Shout out to GRC. Sorry, I'm a little late. I got caught up in the AWS event. What's up, John? Glad you can make it. For the Billions. Study GRC. Shout out to Chris running that. Salute to John. Let me get my slides shared. Let me see. Yeah, running a little behind, but you know how we do it. If you got any tech questions or cybersecurity questions, drop them in the chat. We're going to go over CA, assessment, authorization, and monitoring. Give me a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Give me a 1. Oh, Chris already got the 1. Shout out to Regime. Chris hit me with the 1. Game over. Appreciate it. Shout out to my man Umar Brown on LinkedIn. Getting a little LinkedIn love. Shout out to Casual Economist. Shout out to Game Over. Another shout out to Umar Brown on my LinkedIn. So I think we can ready to roll. But you know how we do it. If you got any tech questions or cybersecurity, shout out to Sid. Drop them on in the chat. Shout out to Ty. Glad you can join me. So we're going to get on going. Oh, man. So one of my favorite architecture designs. So you see it, the internet gateway, load balancer, flooring over. Shout out to Regime to an availability zone. Shout out to a private subnet. So it's usually web server, app server to a database. Then from the monitoring and assessment and authorization. So when you're doing CMMC, NIST 800-53, my favorite one, IRS. These are the systems that you're going to be getting an ATO, right? ATO. ATO, which is an authority to operate. And so you do all your policies and procedures, you do all that good stuff. Then FISMA or DOD or 3PO say you have authority to operate this system. It meets. What's up, Wayne Warner? Glad you can join me. I appreciate you, man. Shout out to Bruce. We're going to have to do that again. Had a great interview with Combo Courses. Always doing big things. I've been checking him out for a while, so definitely enjoyed that. That was a 2.5-hour interview. Definitely chopped it up. So you definitely, if you haven't seen it, go check out the interview. You might want to check it out over a couple of days. But we're going to talk about the CA, authorization, continuous monitoring, right? So what continuous monitoring are you doing? You making sure you have vulnerability scans, you making sure you're in compliance, you making sure your policies and procedures are up to date. So you continuously monitoring that. And the assessments, we're going to talk about how you look at this infrastructure from a cloud perspective and you get FedRAMP certified, right? So we're going to kind of talk about that at a high level. So let's keep going. So 53, I show this all the time. It's over the United States Department of Commerce. NIST stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology. It came into effect for the Federal Information Security Modernization Act of 2014, aka FISMA. And this helps to manage cost-effective programs to protect their information and information systems, right? So most people know I do NIST 800-53R5, the big dog, right? So here's the 20 security families that are in the NIST 800-53R5. Today we're talking about CA, assessment, authorization, and monitoring. And we're going to go through all 20 of these. So then we're going to kind of put it all together and talk about it like a program. But today we're going to talk about assessments, authorization, and monitoring. So when you actually looked at NIST, you get the control identifier, the audit storage, control name, organizationally defined, the control enhancements. So we're going to dig in kind of each one of these. And from the CA assessment authorization, here are the sub control families. Every one of them has CA1, which is policy and procedures. Control assessments, and that's what a lot of people want to get into. When you talk about GRC, you're doing assessments of controls, NIST, CMC. Are they hardening? The controls are the policies. Some of the controls are Active Directory settings, right? You have to do an assessment of those controls. Information exchange, a lot of times when you're exchanging information with different divisions or agencies or other companies, they want you to have an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding. We'll talk about that. So when I give you information or critical data, how should you protect it? Is it PII? Is it HIPAA? Is it IRS data? Is it federal tax information? So what data are you exchanging in CA3? What level of protection? And what's the data format? Is it batch? Is it SOA architecture? Is it serverless? How are we exchanging data? And if there's a failure, how do we do a retry? Are you saving the file or I'm saving the file and resending it? So those are some of the things you need to talk about in your information exchange. We're going to dig into some of that. I think I picked out 5 of these, but if you want to dig into a specific one, just let me know. Plan of action and milestones is just a schedule, right? When is the action? When is the due date? If you have a finding and you can't fix it at the time, are you going to fix it next year when you get budget? So what's your plan and action? Authorization a lot of times is 3PL. An external entity or company is going to give you authorization. ATO, FedRAMP, right? We're going to look at the 3PLs that can give you authorization at FedRAMP. I printed out like 20 of them. Talked about some of the FedRAMP authorization and what does that mean. Continuous monitoring, once again, compliance scan, Rapid 7, or are you in CMC? Did anything change? Right, so you can scan and see if any of those change. A vulnerability scan is part of continuous monitoring. You can scan policies and procedures to make sure when you sign them, you lock them down and nobody can train them. Penetration shot testing. Shout out to my man. Usually in FAIR, we got to do an external penetration test every 3 years. We got to get an external entity to validate our system. And internal system connections, all right? A lot of times is what systems are connecting what, and it goes along with CA3. What internal systems are connecting to which systems, and even internal systems, what's the exchange? How should we do it? When should it happen? If that system's down, how do we queue up the information? How do we send it? All right, so you got internal systems and you got external system exchanges. We kind of like to document them all the same way, because usually if it's an external system, we're doing it with a different team or a different division. So we want to make sure everybody understands what they're signing up for. All right, so that's part of that. So let's get in there and dig into a few. CA1, policies and procedures. We talked about this all the time. Develop and document and disseminate an organizational level / mission business process level. System level assessment, authorization, and monitoring policy. Address the purpose, scope, roles, and responsibilities of and management commitment of it. You know, we talked about that. That's pretty consistent. Control assessments. Select the appropriate assessor or assessment team for the type of assessment to be conducted. Develop a control assessment plan that describes the scope of assessment, including controls, control enhancements under the assessment procedures to be used to determine control effectiveness, assessment environment, assessment teams, assessment roles and responsibilities. Organizations should ensure the control assessor process possess the required skills and technical expertise to develop effective assessment policy. So shout out to Study GRC. They're doing a couple. What's up, Chaos Ran? They're doing a couple projects where they're doing internal assessments on the controls. I think they're leaving driving the ISO. So they're going to be doing some of these assessments. I think they're going to be looking at policies and procedures. I think they're going to be doing a couple of findings, right, to kind of go through this assessment process, kind of create teams and divvy up work of what should that look like so you can get practical experience. And that's kind of thing I want to do on my channel, right, is do assessments, let people get comfortable, help people do a gap analysis on everything from policies and procedures to Active Directory to databases, and what should that look like. Shout out to Dr. Finesse. Good afternoon, more like night, but appreciate my man for joining. He's definitely leading the GRC projects. On that, once again, they're going to be doing some assessments on some policies and procedures. I think they're driving the ISO. I'll be assisting a little bit, but those guys are running it. I think the old people need to step back and let the young people run it. So it's going to be their show. I'm going to be helping them if they need it. So definitely go check out the Study GRC. If Chris or Dr. Vanessa, if you want to drop the URL in there for the project plan or something, or the project calendar from the Study GRC, you can drop the YouTube channel in there if you want. No pressure, but they're going to be running that. I'm going to be checking on them. Shout out to my man, Man. He's going to run that ISO over there. I'll probably be running a little NIST over here in a little bit. So definitely check them out. Doing great things over there. Let me see if you got any questions. Just drop them in the chat. Shout out to Regine. I want to highlight her. She asked me about an availability zone. And, you know, PBO usually has a YouTube video for everything. I didn't quite have one that breaks down the AWS infrastructure and what's the difference between an availability zone, a local, and an outpost. So I'm doing that video. I think I'm gonna do it at lunchtime on Friday. Shout out to Regine. When PBO don't have a video for a certain answer, he just creates a new video. So I think I'm gonna do some AWS infrastructure. So check out my man Chris in the Study GRC projects. We trying to give people practical experience. So like I said, I'll be able to assisting. Ooh, I'm tired. Assisting. They're gonna be doing some ISO projects. I'm gonna be over there, you know, assisting a little bit, but those guys are running it. Let the young guys step up. The young guys step up. So let's get rolling. If you got any other questions, like I said, I just want to touch on a couple of these sub families from the CA assessment, especially since those guys are going to be doing assessments. We touch on that. Information exchange, a good one. Approve and manage the exchange of information systems and other systems using the assignment of one or more interconnection security agreements, information exchange of security agreements, memoranda of understanding. When I work, we usually do MOUs, memoranda of understanding or agreements, service level agreements, user agreements, non-disclosure agreements. Well, basically, if you're exchanging data, right? When I exchange SSPs with third-party vendors, a lot of times they have secret sauce in there. I have to sign an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, stating that I cannot share any of this with any outside vendors. And if I do, I could be personally sued, right? Or I could be personally held liable, right? For NDAs. I don't sign as many as I used to, but when I worked at the state, I probably signed 2 a month. Why? I was always reviewing systems that were coming into the agencies, be cloud, SaaS, and I would ask for SSPs, and their SSPs, once again, they had proprietary information, so I had to sign a non-disclosure. And when I used to program, when we move files between each other, once again, we need an MOU a lot of times, memorandum of understanding or information exchange. Basically is what files are moving, what level is that files? Is it PII? Is it HIPAA? Is it high trust? Is it IRS FTI, which is federal tax information? Since I'm giving my data to the other system, what security level and am I asking them to be under? Right? We're security, so we got to make sure, they're protecting our data. And we talk about that third-party assessments. A lot of times, third-party assessments, I'm giving you this company's data. I need some security documentation to make sure our stuff is secure and you know what you're doing, right? And we trust it. Shout out to Wayne Warren. I appreciate it, Wayne. So that's kind of the exchange. And when, like I said, I'm gonna start doing some stuff, and I keep saying I'm gonna do a course. I've been saying that for 2 years. But in the course, we have memorandums of understanding, we have NDA, and we have information of exchange and security agreements and what that looks like. Well, it's called DPAs now, data processing agreements. Let's see what my man Ty said. How would this work for threat analysis? In there, I don't think it's really in this family. Threat analysis is coming up, but threat analysis. Let me scroll up. PBO be doing stuff on the fly. Let's see. Let's see. We were talking about CA3. Let's go up to the top. I think threat analysis is going to be under incident response. I'm pretty sure it's on under incident response. And under incident response will be threat analysis, probably BIA, business impact analysis, DR, mean times to response, mean times to failure. So I think all of that would be under incident response, to be honest about that, Ty. But we can definitely touch on that a little bit. Let's talk about plan, action, and milestones. Develop a plan, action, and milestones for system to document the plan of remediation, action of the organization to correct weaknesses or deficiency during the assessment of the controls to reduce or eliminate known vulnerabilities. So when you do your assessment, a lot of times there will be findings. What is a finding? A finding is where we had a check that we couldn't meet that level of security. It could be we have encryption, but it's not FIPS 142 government approved encryption. So we have encryption, but it's not at the government level. So there will be a finding, right? Since we have encryption, it probably wouldn't be critical because we do have encryption, but it's not at the level. So it'll probably be moderate. So in the plan, we would say we would fix this 2025 first quarter. We're going to upgrade to government approved encryption, which could be BitLocker on some machines. Maybe we weren't using BitLocker, we was using some janky encryption on the laptop, right? So that would be remediation action, but we would do it at a later date and we put it in the project plan. So it'd be like encryption, finding V03. We're gonna fix that Q2.1. We're gonna upgrade to BitLocker on all the laptops, right? So when we get audited, they say, okay, they know their encryption is weak, not at the right level. They understand the risk of the organization. They got it scheduled in the project plan. And the big thing government wants to do is it funded, right? Because upgrading is going to cost money. You got to, get uptime. You got to test it. So a lot of times they want to see that in your project plan that you're actually planning it out correctly. Shout out to Boyle's information. Always has good information. Ain't seen you in a while. Shout out to him. Always definitely one of the day ones. But so yeah, when you do plans, action, and milestones, a lot of times they want to say, once again, we had encryption on the workstation. We wasn't using BitLocker. BitLocker is actually FIPS 140-2. That's government approved encryption. We put that in the project plan or the planner. We're going to start using O365. We put it in planner. We're going to encrypt all the workstations to BitLocker, FIPS 140-2, Q2. Okay, funding is going to cost X amount. We had to upgrade to, I'm making this up, E3 on the O365, right, to push that down. It's going to cost X amount. We're going to do it on this time. We got a test plan. We're going to run a proof of concept on 10 machines throughout the organization in different divisions to make sure it's tested. Once that's approved, then we're going to roll it out this quarter. Boom. So when the 3PLs come out, or the external assessors, that's the stuff they want to see. Okay, they had a finding. This is what they're going to do to improve it. They already checked the risk, right? So the risk was low because they already encryption. Management approved it. This is some money they got, and this is when they're gonna do it. This is when they're gonna test it, right? So that's kind of what the auditors want to see. That means you have a security program, right? When you're testing it, that's what they want to see. Shout out to Study GRC. They're gonna do some of that in the labs, and Dr. Finesse, I think, is leading that. Shout out to him. He's in the house, so go check him out. PBO just gonna be in the clouds over there. He getting old. He gonna just relax a little bit. Let's go ahead and check them out. Continuous monitor, that's real quick. People reach out to me all the time for continuous monitoring. Develop a system level continuous monitoring strategy. Implement continuous monitoring in accordance with the organizational level continuous monitoring strategy. So that's what they want to see in the S-standard procedure. What is your monitoring strategy? Establish the system level metrics to be monitored. For monitoring, for assessment control effectives, ongoing control assessment, and with accordance with continuous. So every month, people know I do a lot of IRS work, so we would do a Nexus scan. It will scan for the IRS Pub 1075 settings. So that if anything gets changed or moved, we'll notice it, right? Because we'll have more findings or something changed. And that way we continuously monitor to see if something changed, did a patch broke, or what we see a lot of times is developers might have an emergency release and they don't tell us about it, and they cut some security stuff off, right? So we want to make sure if somebody do emergency release, it should get documented. But that's part of continuous monitoring to make sure stuff stays at the security level we have signed off to say what we were at, right? So continuous monitoring at the system level facilitates ongoing awareness of the system security and privacy posture to support organizational risk management decision. This term continuous and ongoing implies an organization access and monitor controls and risk at the frequency sufficient to support risk-based decisions. So a lot of times, once again, we kind of do that once a month. A lot of times we do vulnerability scans once a week. Then also in there is database schema changes, code changes, right? Anything that could break your system, you need to be monitoring so you know the state of that. A lot of times stuff happens in the technical stuff, and the compliance slash GRC slash security people might not be kept up to date. So you need to know with continuous and ongoing, right, what is the system level awareness and the posture of your system. So doing those scans and different things helps you keep in compliance of what that is, right? So let's see what's going on with some questions. Oh, shout out to Regine. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that Friday at lunch. I need to check my schedule. So yeah, that AZ availability zone. I didn't really have a video for that. I was surprised. So we're gonna chop that up. If you can join me, if not, just check out the replay. You know, you can always ping me if you have any additional questions. I appreciate that. Let's see. So no new question. So I just took a shot. We always talking about FedRAMP assessors. Who are the FedRAMP assessors? So FedRAMP is basically federal approval of a cloud vendor, aka Amazon, Azure, and Google. Once FedRAMP approves their data center, you don't have to do a security review of the data center because it's already been done at a nation level. So each agency or company don't have to keep doing a security review. FedRAMP says it's good, so everybody salutes, right? So, you know, and I'm going to show you, AWS has their data centers. So they got the webcams, they got power supplies, they got sign-in sheets. So the stuff they need for their infrastructure has already been approved by one of these 3PLs. There's actually 360 of them. One thing I want to do is shout out to Study GRC is we work on FedRAMP, which is NIST 800. Once you get those skills, you can reach out to one of these FedRAMP vendors and say you've done an assessment and you have that skill set. Right? So just look at that. So if you go to fedramp.gov, You could pick on assessors at the top. Is this is in alphabetical order, but you know, Accenture, one of the big dogs, is in there. Coalfire is huge. They tell you how many products they assess. Align has 74, and Coalfire has 111. Centurium has 0, 2, 111, 2. The reason why is Accenture charges a ton of money to do these. And I think Coalfire, they came in with a ton of people and a better price. So they actually dominate that the field. So Coalfire, and I actually see those ads out. If you go on Indeed, I think Coalfire had a couple recs out there. But so once again, 3PL, these are the companies that go out and do the assessment for cloud vendors, or if you got a product you want to go in the cloud, you could pay them to do an assessment of it. Right? Those are pretty expensive, right? Because once you get it, you're open for federal work. So I think they know it's expensive, and that's why they're out there doing it. So let's keep going. So you see, I did AWS, so you see it right there, AWS Web Service, AWS US East and West, and AWS Cloud, Service Model IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, impact level moderate and high if you want to do government, FedRAMP authorized, authorizations 90 and 62, reuses 79, 895. So what is reuse? That's government agencies and vendors using their product out there. So they saying it's 800 out there. So all the big guys, they want that federal money. So they want to say fair and say they're good. So you see big Cisco out there, SAP at the bottom. So, but Amazon's out there. So if you gov cloud and you want to try to do high with some nuclear stuff or life and death, you have to go into AWS Gov Cloud. If you're just doing moderate stuff, which most of the stuff is, I do a lot of IRS work. You can go into moderate right there. So you see the AWS service has their FedRAMP approved, authorized, and you see down there Clever Variant. I don't even know who they got some AI imaging. They're in the process. A lot of times, if you're in process, people will still go with you because if you're in process and you're almost done, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get your authorized. So you see in process. Of course, nobody else using it, but so that lets you know where they're at inside the in the approval process for the 3PL. Once again, AWS, I always tell people, make sure you do AWS US East and US West, right? AWS has a ton of regions. You want to make sure you're in those two because those are FedRAMP authorized. So if you're trying to get government work, you want to get in that US East and West. So, let's see, my man. I want that Fed money too. Shout out to the Fed money. Yeah, but so there you go. So a lot of times if you want to see, then AWS, we're gonna dig down even deeper because AWS really wants that Fed money. So what they telling you on top of that is our data centers, US East, West, Gov, but we'll tell you which one of our service/programs are FedRAMP approved East or West. And most of their programs are. So if you're using AWS Gateway, Flow, MySQL, PostgreSQL, they got SDK. It tells you if it's FedRAMP approved or not. So when I do assessments, that's what we're talking about, or authorizations, one of the first things I look at is AWS, is your service approved for the work you want to do? So once again, I do IRS work. The IRS says you need to be in a FedRAMP data center. So part of that is your service should be FedRAMP approved. Right. So if your service is FedRAMP approved, to be honest, I'm not gonna really dig into that service, right? Because AWS says I need that too. AWS says we good on that, right? We got the paperwork. So if somebody gets hacked, I'm gonna be like, you got to see AWS. They said they were FedRAMP, right? So the 3PLs signed off on that, right? And we're gonna dig in there. Shout out to Chris when we get on in there and doing that ISO work. So we look at some AWS services and see if they're FedRAMP or ISO or NIST approved or CMC approved or GDR approved. AWS is about that Fed money, so they're going to tell you once again what services you're using and if they're approved for that work. Once again, I do FedRAMP work. That's why I'm fat. I live on that FedRAMP money. That's tax money. That's infinite, right? So once again, that's what we're going to talk about when we start doing assessment stuff. Shout out to the projects. ran by my man Chris Chris Whitlock, trying to get a little Fed money like PBO. Shout out to Dr. Finesse. Shout out to my man Min Min. He in Australia, he gonna be in there. Shout out to Regine. I think she's signing up to get some of them exercises. So once again, we gonna let's see, step back real quick. 3PAOs, we're going to assess your cloud or your product. They accept these cloud service providers or products. We see Amazon at the top. I typed AWS. Once again, these are FedRAMP approved data centers and AZs, right? Availability zones. Availability zones can have multiple data centers in it, but we're going to talk about that Friday at lunch, I believe. Or I need to get with Chris. Maybe I'll do it Thursday. You will see it. It's coming up. Then once again, the service in those data centers, which one of those FedRAMP? So in the FedRAMP East and West, that's commercial and FedRAMP. So you can have some commercial services in there. They're not FedRAMP approved, right? Or you got so that's when you got to check. But in the FedRAMP High, CalGov, everything in the FedRAMP Gov Cloud is going to be FedRAMP approved because it's government and everything in there has to be government approved and signed off by a government agency. So that's all I really have. So let me flow back up to the top, talk about these, drop the link a little bit. Oh, so we'll see what my man. So what's the GRC project about? At a high level, I think they're going to do some ISO projects and study GRC. And in there, I think they're going to do some findings, some gap analysis, and how do you actually do a ISO project. And my man Chris, I think he's got some of that right here. Who's that? Texas B6 BY. I think in here, if you click on that project, I think he has some of that list out in his study GRC project. So I think that's what they're trying to get started, to give people some practical experience. Let me drop the link if anybody wants to come up and chop it up about a little GRC. We won't stay long tonight. We gonna hit that hump day tomorrow. Ooh, 33, that's super quick for me. After you're done recapping 60 seconds. Okay. Yeah, I can recap. I just go over the policies what we're talking about. So assessment, authorization, and monitoring, that's the subfamily. And then these subfamilies, the security families, assessment, authorization, and monitoring. Then in there's these 8 security families, because I skipped over 4. Policy procedures, control assessments, information exchange, plan action and milestones, authorization, continuous monitoring, penetration testing, and external and system connections. Yep. So in policies, procedures, in anything, you got to have policies and procedures for how you're doing assessment, authorization, and monitoring. From a management level, how you want to do it, what level you want to do it. Are you doing FISMA? Are you doing CMC? How are you doing? And in those procedures, how are you doing rapid 7 scans? How are you doing compliance scans? How are you doing findings and procedures? How are you doing, like you said, how are you hiring 3POs? How are you hiring penetration tests every 3 years? So that'd have been your procedures. And once again, what control assessments are you doing? People know I do a lot of IRS work, so we were doing IRS Pub 1075. Information exchange and internal system connections. When you exchange information from outside organizations or outside entities, do you have a memorandum of understanding or exchange? How are we exchanging data? Is it encrypted? What's our file layout? If your system's not up, are we queuing the data up? Am I failing and saving the file and it's automatically going to resend it to you? So that's going to be your information exchange and your internal system connections, right? So what is that communication? What level? How much data can you lose? Probably 0. Once again, how are you going to restart a failure? Plan of action and milestones is basically a schedule. So when you're going to get stuff done, if you have a finding because you couldn't meet a control, when is it going to get fixed? Are you accepting the risk, right? Are you going to do it next year? And in there, you should have funding, timing, what's your resources to be able to fix that particular finding or gap. Authorization, do you have an external entity? I reported to the IRS when I worked at the state. So the IRS will give us authorization for our system to be approved to do IRS work. So Booz Allen will come in every 3 years. So what is your authorization system? Sometimes if you're in private, it could be just the CISO signing off and the CIO signing off that says they give authorization of this system to be in production. Oh, I appreciate it, man. I taught for 10 years at a local college, so I appreciate that. That's cool, B2B. So the continuous monitoring, compliance scans, rapid 7 scans, nexus scans. How do you keep track of what's the posture and security level of the organization to make sure nothing has changed, right? That's continuous monitoring. Right? So that could be everything. And we're going to talk about that AWS config. You can put that in there. And we talked about, and we'll scroll up there, about our configuration. How do we know none's changed? Shout out to penetration testing. Shout out to we do that every 3 years in the IRS. So what does an external penetration test looks like and what's in it? All right. Internal system connections. Internally, what systems are we connecting to? Sometimes we could be connecting to three internal systems that we control, not one. But what does that look like? Once again, if one of them's down and one of them's up, right? If one of them lose power, are we failing over? Once again, if that system's down, do we queue them up? And when it comes up, do we have to keep them in the same order? Could we just dump in 100 files and it just runs them in, right? So those are some of the things you need to keep track of. But once again, that's my man's 60-second recap. But let's look at the while I wait for my man B2B come up. Let's look at that that system architecture. So this could be our system. So this is what we're monitoring, right? So if we got EC2 and we got an image and it's at a certain security level with so many findings, but if somebody changes the image and we didn't get it documented, so now when we scan, we have more findings because somebody didn't configure the image right. So the question would be, how did that image get in there? Who signed off? What's our release control factor? What's our release and management? What's our data pipeline to get stuff in production? So that's kind of why you want to monitor. Sometimes you might have emergency release. We used to do that all the time. If it's emergency, we're going to fix it, but we need to go back and do the documentation and get it in the system and figure out, what's changing. Hopefully it would change to be more secure, but a lot of times it might not be. So that's the stuff from a continuous. Oh shit! I didn't even see y'all back there. Let me get my headset in. I'm not doing a good job today. I got people in the back. My bad. I'm just talking. Hold on.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah,
I came from
you're not doing it
AWS. I ain't
solo at all.
together, man. Well, let me get. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead. My bad.
Oh no, you're good. I love the diagrams. I did have I was going to give a quick rundown on that project portion, and then I wanted to talk about that continuous monitoring. I have one of the controls up for it.
Okay.
CA7.
Okay.
But yeah, so basically the project that we're starting with is Min is assisting, which he works with ISO on a daily basis at work. And he's going to assist us with going through and actually getting Study GRC compliant with ISO 27K. So it's going to be 27001. We got to do all the policies and everything. So it's going to be completely from scratch for Study GRC itself. And that's going to be one of the biggest benefits is we can make all of that information public as well. So, yeah.
And Jimmy time, I like it because it should give you you and everybody else real world experience, right? Min-Min's, like you said, it does that in real life. So I think it's going to give everybody real experience, and we're going to help you get that on your resume so you can get some of that federal work. Go ahead, Chris. Shout out to
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there was a section in here in the continuous monitoring in CA7 that says that you have to have independent auditors. So CA7-1 states that employ independent assessors or assessment teams to monitor the controls in the system on an ongoing basis. Does that mean that like just your team you have to have a separate team that does the monitoring and
Uh,
ongoing?
yes and no. I think because you got to remember, NIST is usually done for federal work, so they believe like the IRS. If you're doing IRS work, the IRS comes in with Booz Allen. They're external entity. If you federal, shout out to my man Jeff. I used to work with him, and shout out to him. I learned a lot from. But yeah, I mean, if you're a federal work, FISMA, they're going to come in. So theoretically, if you're doing federal work, 9 times out of 10, that will be an outside or a third party external auditor would come in and look at you. Once again, I did 10 years at the state of Indiana. Shout out to my man. I worked for him. He was vice president of information tech. We used to get into it, but shout out to him. But yeah, so yeah, you got to have an external. So because remember, a lot of times this is federal work, so that's why you get that.
Yeah, that's what I found interesting that it says independent. So
and two, let me what Chris said is, and I was going to go in that in depth the second time around. There's sub families to those families. I just stayed at the second level. Chris went down to the -1 to the -2, and that's one reason I do like NIST is they get down to the nitty gritty. But shout out to Chris. He said my videos was too long, so I'm trying to cut them down a little bit. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
hey, I mean, what, you have a cap of 1 hour you're looking at?
No, probably, but we're gonna get some questions in there. So
Yeah, I was just looking over the same CA section on the Trello board here,
yeah. So I was gonna go
following you.
through all of those, and I was going through the one and try to make a project on each one of those findings where we go in and do the planner. I'm trying to do those Office 365 and do the planner stuff. Then actually set up a poem of actions of if we had a finding, what would that look like? If we had some vulnerabilities for those sub families, what that would look like. So,
how's it going before the billions?
shut up.
Yeah, everything's going well.
What you
How
got?
you guys doing?
I'm doing good, man. My bad. I had y'all in the back room just talking. I have to look up. I'm like, oh shit, I don't even have my headset in. I got in late from the AWS event. Shout out to Before the Billions. He's got me trying to go to some functions in person now. So I've been trying to do it, man. You and Chris be going to those functions. So I went to my AWS. But what's going on Before the Bills? What can I do for you?
Yeah, going to those events are necessary. Somebody told me recently, they said that networking is only one letter off from not working.
That's funny. I like that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to come up and say, I'm learning more about system design, and now I recently got a job at a new company that is going to be using AWS.
Okay.
So now I'm going to be utilizing a lot of the things that you teach, because I was in like the Google space, so I kind of had to transfer all the different products into Google language, but now I'm going to be directly working with AWS. So I'm going to gain even more value from a lot of these videos.
Oh, facts. I got some in there. I'm gonna start doing some more AWS. That's funny you mentioned that. I said I was gonna I am gonna start doing one AWS video again because I gotta kind of get my skills back up. I'm a little rusty myself. So I said I'm gonna start doing AWS. I'm actually gonna do the cloud vendor stuff, data center stuff. So
Lab every day, PBO.
Trying to.
Yes, definitely. And then I think that one of the best ways that I've been able to learn so far, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but like that labbing every day, like creating projects. I think that's like the best way that I learn is like actually having something to do specifically for like whatever technology I'm trying to learn.
Oh, fine.
Like that's how it was with like Tableau, because I had never used it before, but like somebody wanted a data dictionary, and I was like, okay, let me just create it in Tableau.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, look at real world abilities. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why Study GRC is trying to come up with their projects to kind of give people some real world experience to chop it up. So
I think that's the hardest part is coming up with the real world aspect, because like you can do mock all you want, but each environment is so unique. Yeah. And that's where it becomes so difficult when you're trying to get that experience.
Yeah. So the one thing I've been talking about this forever, generate this something like this in AWS, then you could do your scans, then you could do your findings, and that'd be closer to a real world environment where you have some public, private, EC2s, you got some databases for the app server and a web server. And so that would be closer to a real world setup, right? So what it would look like. So I think that's what we're kind of missing.
Yeah, because I have this saying is that you have to be able to learn and build with a purpose.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people I talk to at these networking events and conferences, they say, "Oh, I'm working on this." It may be a personal project for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like something that they don't work with or are not trying to get a job in.
Mm-hmm.
So it really doesn't have a purpose. It's like, okay, I want to learn this technology, but how does this help you in the real world? And what's the overall purpose? Does it make anybody any money? Stuff like that. So when you're going in and you're trying to get a job or going in these interviews, I notice, man, these like recruiters or these hiring managers, they don't care if you like go to a conference unrelated to what the job is or do a project that's unrelated to what the job is. So if you like, for example, like you're trying to get a job in GRC, it would make sense for you to work in projects using GRC.
Facts.
But if you do a whole bunch of other kinds of projects, like cybersecurity is so much of a broad type of paradigm. But even GRC has a lot of different things that you can do. Right? Like, can't you do like risk management or something?
No.
And then you can do. I think even SOC also looks at like GRC. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yep. So yeah,
So
I kind of separate, but they socket. I mean, they GRC adjacent, but yeah, all of that.
yeah. So and there's so many different things that you can do. You kind of want to tailor it to what you want to do. Like, that's why I say like building something with a purpose. And that's why, like when Chris said it was difficult because everybody's different, and that's just how every ecosystem is. Every company wants to do something different. Not everybody's following the exact the exact way of doing things or how it's defined out, especially with like agile. Everybody's different.
Yeah. The cool thing too is once you get in AWS, in their events, they have workbooks and recipes of what they believe is their best practices to do a certain data engineering or pipeline or GRC. They usually tell you these are the best practices they believe. So a lot of times when I talk to people, I tell people these are the best practices. You don't have to follow them, but these are the best practices. And these was what I understand. And this is kind of what I built my skill set on. So
yep. And in PPO, one thing that I realized, I started like when I was looking for a job, I started working with like smaller businesses, and then like those projects I worked for with them, that helped me leverage. Like I put it on my resume, like, hey, I'm genuinely working with a small company, and I put it on my resume, and then that skill transfers over to like a larger company.
oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Most definitely. A lot of times too is actually crosses better because a lot of times big companies they kind of put you in a box. You got to use this thing and this thing. A lot of times small they don't give a shit. You can cowboy it up. They just want it done right. So you do a lot of stuff. Because when I worked at small companies, I did it, and when I went to a bigger company, I was like, oh yeah, I did that all wrong, right? Because small companies it might not scale right. It could be a little slow, but they're not moving today. When you start moving 1,billion rows, it's got to be tight, right? You talking about memory, you talking about everything, right? So I think sometimes small companies you can cowboy it up and be in charge of everything, but bigger companies, especially the big boys, it's regimen, but they give you best practices. You using the tools. They kind of give you this, even though you're in a box, this regimented way of how we do stuff, right? You getting peer reviews. And a lot of times they're taking the top techniques too because they got the top guys and brought them in and consultants. So you learn a lot of stuff to do it like that. So.
Yeah. I learned something new too.
Chris, I put you on mute. Take yourself off of mute, Chris. You be typing loud, man. So I be putting you on mute. Go off mute, Chris. My bad. I should have told you that. Do I need to take? I can take you off. My bad. I put you in timeout, man. Go ahead.
No,
Chris.
that's fine.
You be typing too hard, man. Go ahead. You like, do. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a mute, Chris. Go ahead. What you got?
what I was going to say is kind of what you're going on there is the smaller business. You're going to be way more of a generalist as
Yeah,
compared to enterprise.
yeah.
You're going to do a little bit of everything,
No,
right?
I agree, and I liked it because when I worked at small businesses, like I said, then I leveraged that to when I go for big companies. I know this big tech stack, right? So I can help you. So,
Yeah. And another thing about big businesses, it's kind of like they're just doing victory laps right now.
oh
They already have like their big money makers, especially like for an example, Google. Google has like Google search, and they have like Google, all these different the G Suite products and stuff.
hmm
But then they acquired a lot of different products from other companies
yeah,
that have already been built.
hmm
So they're not really going to be innovating in a way that like a new developer is going to make a big change to like their core product.
yeah,
They're just going to be doing maintenance, and they may do like a small little feature here that adds a little bit more functionality or
hmm
maybe improve something, but it's not necessarily that, oh, you come in, you get to change things like how a small business would be, and you get
no.
to learn a little bit more, I believe, in small businesses
Oh,
than you do like in larger businesses.
oh, a ton more. I believe a ton more because I used to do Oracle and they bought like 400 companies in a decade. So they bought like 3 web servers, but they were stitching them together underneath. I'd be looking at log files and it would say IBM WebSphere. I'm like, dude, but they put it on the Oracle. But that's what big companies do. They're creating features. They just buying them, right? They said this
I'll be
little
right
company
back.
got this feature. I want them, cool. So they would buy the feature, right, and stitch it together. So instead of creating features, they would buy all the good features. Go ahead, Chris. Look, you were going to jump in on it.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, I kind of feel like also going back to like the compliance side and so forth. I mean, something I've seen too is, or heard of is, the software as a service. Sometimes it's cheaper to go off and get something that already has it than
Oh,
to
yeah.
implement it yourself. So,
A lot of
you know,
times, too, especially in the stuff you read, is they want you to have support, right? So when you buy support, a lot of times you go on with the big companies because, too, they're already FedRAMP approved, right? Which kind of sucks, but Oracle, AWS, Azure, all their services are already FedRAMP approved. So that cuts down your assessment time. You like, check, right? I just got to make sure we can figure those pieces together to make sure they're correct. Um, but that's what working with a big company, they give you that assurance and once again assessment. They pay for the 3PO to assess their product and say if it's FedRAMP approved or NIST approved or whatever that approval is, right? So,
a really good thing to pull up there on that topic is the Amazon support pricing page.
which one? Send it to you. Got it.
Yeah, I have it.
Share
I'll
it.
drop.
You want to share it? I can share it off your screen, or you gonna drop it?
Yeah, I can share it on mine.
Yeah, then I can just highlight the screen once you share it.
Yeah, so on the AWS support one here.
I don't even see it. It's not letting me share it. I heard it, but oh, there it is. It took a minute to come up.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the AWS support plan pricing. So like what you were just saying, and we've talked about it before too. So minimum spend of $29, minimum spend of 100,
Make that bigger.
5,500.
Make that bigger for the old people, man. Okay, that's much better. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of interesting to throw on here too. I think that I saw the same thing on Azure as well, where honestly, I think like that's where they make a good portion of their money is from the support alone
Oh
that
yeah.
they provide.
Let's see what Regine say. Is SAS Co a good starting ground for GRC? I don't understand what is that a company? You see what Regine said? I highlighted it. SAS Code. You see that, Chris?
Yeah, she might be referring to just software as a service.
Well, she got an A, so that's why I'm a little confused. I think it is software as a service. Regine, is that software as a service, 2 A's, or is SaaS the company? Because I'm thinking she talking about SaaS. Maybe they have a GRC product I'm not aware of. Kind of like
Yeah, because I think they're a data company, aren't they? Like data analytics.
Yeah, they were, but everybody's buying some, so maybe they got some.
True.
What's the service company that everybody uses? They got a GRC company now, so everybody's kind of got some.
Yeah, so it is software as a service.
Oh, you
It
forgot
sounds
a
like
regime. Come on, tighten that up, man.
probably on T-Mobile.
Yeah, it could be. I'm like, sad. I mean, does SAS do that? Because what's the ticketing company? They got a GRC module now. I can't even think of.
So the service provider.
No, what's the service? What's the ticket module everybody buys? They just got a
It's SAS.com.
Is it SAS.com? What's the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, they have a risk management division.
What is that? I cannot think today. I am struggling today.
SAS.com, right, Regine?
Is it SAS.com? What's she talking about? Software. Okay, I never seen that one.
Yeah, so if you look under their solutions, they do have a risk management portion where they provide different services such as risk governance, insurance risk management, expected credit loss.
I haven't even looked at that, to be honest. That one.
I have not either. I've heard of the company before, but I have not looked into them.
Oh, I was thinking ServiceNow because ServiceNow is the top ticketing company. They got a GRC module.
Yeah.
I can't even think of ServiceNow. They're the big dog.
I mean, it looks like they're a pretty big company.
Okay.
Chris, can I ask you this? Is in your work, do you use like Agile or like Kanban or anything like that for ticketing?
Me?
Or like setting up projects?
No, he does not.
No?
I'm gonna talk for him. Go ahead, Chris.
Seems like you're gonna talk for him, yeah.
Yeah, my project management is good old Excel documents. So I've experimented a little bit with Gantt charts. But yeah, that's pretty much it. More so like 9 different continuous handful of people. So
okay. Yeah, because it's like the same thing, but it's just, if it's like a setup structure or not.
I get grumpy, man. They make me go to stand up every morning, man. They used to. I'd be mad. I had to leave, man. I don't like stand up every morning now.
Yeah, structure requires time and and planning.
Yeah, let me answer this question. Everybody can chime in. Any thoughts of everybody getting into nuclear? I know Microsoft had that nuclear power plant started off from 3 Mile Island. They were burning so much energy. Data centers, especially when you do AI, they take a ton of water. So I think people are trying to figure out what's going to be the power source for it. I think 3 Mile Island started back up for Microsoft. So I think Microsoft's paying for a lot of that. Bitcoin mining, no, I think for them, it was just them running their data centers. Azure and Amazon, they're trying to figure out, because they take so much power. And I think people are starting to complain. We're in a drought and they're taking up in Arizona, they're taking up all the water. So I think if the Amazon, let me Google that while I'm talking about it, make sure I got it right. I think if it goes well for Meta and Azure with 3 Mile Island, I think if that goes well, nuclear might make a comeback. Everybody got scared of nuclear for a while, so it's going to be interesting to see.
So I did read an article recently that came up about that, because one of the companies, or a couple of them, were actually sealing a deal for nuclear power for a data center.
The one I saw was the 3 Mile Island when I put it in the chat. What was your take on it? I guess I could share it.
I think it's a great idea personally. I think nuclear is better than burning coal, but I'm not fluent in that realm.
Yeah, I went to a environmental. It was called environmental justice event earlier this year, and they were talking about the impact that data centers have on the environment around us,
It's
and
brutal.
how a lot of the data centers are put up in non-residential areas a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time. But
Yeah.
if there is a data center that is around a residential area, sometimes they'll say, "Hey, we're putting this data center here, but we're going to build a library, right, for like the local economy,
For
kind
the
of
little
make up
kids.
for it."
Yeah, for the little kids while we kill you with this nuclear waste. Now go ahead.
Right. So it's kind of interesting to see, and also like I think they brought up Bitcoin, right, and how expensive it is to be able to
Right.
run
To
and
mine it.
mine that mine that Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah.
Very expensive, but then also very costly as far as like the environment as well. So I wonder how people are going to like leverage that, because yeah, you burn a lot of water, but also you're going to burn a lot of nuclear energy as well,
I think
especially when things get a little bit more advanced with AI
mm,
and
I think that's why
everything else.
I think they think with the nuclear it's I guess better power outage, output, but the nuclear waste you got to deal with it. But two, I heard the fourth gen nuclear power plants are much more offensive, much more efficient, and less waste. So I really dug into it. I was just 3 Mile Island has such a bad rap when I was younger to hear people talk about opening. Old people like, oh my God, we're gonna die for a data center, right? So, but no, I think it's the future. Like I said, I think fourth gen because they're gonna update all the software. I need to get with Struggle Security, get him in the house. He used to work for a nuclear power plant. So he could probably have a little more input on the fourth generation nuclear. Is it better? Is it work? Obviously, it's going to be better, but is it safer? What's kind of ramifications behind it? But yeah, I just kind of want to look at the headlines of the article but that's scary a little bit to me because that's kind of Elon Musk. What do I mean is when you so powerful, you can open up 3 Mile Island to power your data center, right? And you bring it back nuclear as a corporation, not as a government entity. You bringing that back as a corporation, right? So that's pretty powerful. So that for me, that's a little. That's a,
Well,
I like technology and the mover, but that's a little dystopian. Go ahead, Chris. What's your comments?
yeah,
Give me
I feel like I
shoot.
found a pretty good article on it published
You want
14
to
hours ago.
you
I
want to
sent
share
it to
yours?
you on Discord. Yeah, I can drop it in the chat or something. I did send
Yeah,
it to you on Discord though.
just
But
drop it.
like, so Google did sign a deal for a nuclear power startup
Oh wow.
that is aiming to deliver 500 megawatts by 2035. And this is directly caused by Google's AI initiative.
AI is just taking us so much. So I think all the big players are going to be in nuclear after a while. So
Yeah, and that's basically what this article says too. It also goes along the lines of some experts doubt the long-term viability of AI businesses with concerns about overvaluation and high project failure rates.
oh yeah.
Basically meaning that like we won't be able to keep up with it too.
Well, I think
Um,
like anything, I think it's going to be a boom or bust. You're going to get that tag. It's going to boom up, then probably 75% of them going to disappear, but 25% of them is going to control the world. So
I really feel like it also states that other tech giants like Oracle and Microsoft are also investing in small modular reactors, SMRs, for their AI data centers. That's kind of concerning to me because like there's still a risk with that. Like look where was it? Like Japan who had
yeah,
a reactor leak and so forth. Like, yeah.
Russia had one too. They talked about that. I think they just now getting over that. Yeah, I might do a video on that, Chris. That's kind of interesting, man.
Yeah, I think that was great to bring up. Who was that?
Where am I? Okay, that's me.
Info Systems?
Yeah, Boyles.
Boyless?
Boyles,
Yeah.
yeah. This guy's on company. We chatted up on LinkedIn a lot. Let me share the one you just shared.
Mhm.
There it is, Google with the smile. And so is nuclear making a comeback? Is that what we saying at a high level? Is that what we saying?
Well, Well, a lot of these big companies are investing a lot in nuclear power because that they need more power.
And two, when they do that, they get more jobs. They're bringing stuff to the economy. So I think a lot of economies, especially with the tech depression we in. Shout out to B2B though, he got the job. But so what?
You need an
So
ad block.
I thought I had one. I have to check on my ad block, man. Maybe I didn't upgrade it. Yeah, we talked about that. The game. I guess I could show that. But yeah, it's this nuclear. I guess we start nuclear. I might talk about that a little bit.
And PBO, I wanted to also bring this up too. So I went to an event earlier today with one of the presidents of the Federal Reserve for the city of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And they were discussing, like, in tech, the amount of innovations that they're expecting. They were talking about the reasons why, like, the Federal Reserve dropped the interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
So that way it would allow more businesses to be able to invest in things like this, like nuclear power and energy. And then they were talking about EVs and how much money there is still left that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury can provide to these large businesses. So I thought about it and I was like, man, there's a direct correlation between the interest rates that companies can get to be able to borrow more money, how much money people are spending, like, out of their own pockets, like out of their savings, and they're, and then when you brought up like the tech depression, like people getting jobs, like getting laid off and stuff like that, they were also saying that also feeds into like things like this, and that's why you see more spending into robotics, more spending into nuclear, more spending into EVs. And I thought that was just kind of interesting. Like, you see data centers popping up everywhere. And I was talking to one of the ladies who's over data centers for Google. And I met her at like one of the Google events, and she was talking about how much Google is going to be investing into nuclear and also data centers within 2025, but then also going forward, you're going to see a lot more of them popping up.
You know why that is, right? Amazon put the lead, so everybody's catching up. They had a 12-year head start. So, right. Yeah. So Amazon set the trend, so everybody's trying to, and I'm going to do a video on talking about the data center and infrastructure. They have a worldwide network of just theirs, right? They bought so much dark fiber, you can run your stuff just on AWS's network. You don't even have to go through the internet for a lot of stuff, right? So I think that's part of it. But you're right, that innovation, that money, those big tech items, that's one thing the United States does well is the internet, data centers, they're controlling that, right? A lot of that. Now, robotics, I think AI, I think China's whooping our ass on that one, but so we're gonna have to catch up on that. But no, those type of innovations, and Silicon Valley's been doing that for 30 years, right? They come up with so many innovations, then they just create a whole new industries, right? Now, if the opposite are happening, they create whole new industries, but they're taking them out. Like the port strike, I looked up automation for a port. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't know they had all that automation that's going to take away all those jobs. That's why that union was trying to block automation, right? That's still part of tech. We're going to create something and we're going to destroy something on the way. So,
and that's another video for you to make. There is that question that I had asked on what skills or like titles would be utilized when those go automated.
Yeah, I need to dig into that one a little
bit. So how can I get into the industry to make the automated ports, basically?
No, I was looking into that because, I'm an AWS guy. AWS has a ton of stuff. So I said AWS was going to buy a port, but that could be me just AWS fanboy because they got the autonomous cars, the autonomous trucks. They got all of that in there. They got the 5G stuff in there. So they had looked like they had everything. And two, it's easier. Autonomous trucks, they trying to drive on the interstate and driving it. You got a thing that's contained and a lot of space. So that'd be much easier to do automation from the ports. So
Yeah, it's a scary world we live in.
yeah, I think it's gonna get.
And like before the Billings was talking about, I think that's kind of fascinating too, to get a little insight into, like the high structure of the market on like, oh, they drop the interest rates or otherwise, and then how they distribute their money and make their investments basically.
Oh yeah, but the cool thing, especially those guys, is you got VC firms. They just look for smart startups, and Andreessen, those guys been out there forever, man. He did the what was the first web browser? That's how he made his first billions, and Bill Gates took him out. So those guys got infinite money. Patia made his money on Facebook. Right, I think he was a 7-person on Facebook. So I think he got like 300 million out of it. So those guys are constantly investing in startups at the ground level. They go into Stanford and just drop kids 300,000. I like your idea. Here's some VC money. Let's go start a company. See what y'all can do. Right.
Mosaic.
That was before Mosaic. I'll go do Google Mark Andreessen and web browser. It wasn't. It was the one right after that. He was in Illinois State as a PhD student and created it. The Microsoft looked at it and just integrated in Windows and took him out. You see it? Netscape. Netscape. If you bored, look at that video. It's intriguing how they did and they was building up. And Bill Gates just looked at it and go, "Yeah, I'm just gonna copy it and put it inside Windows and take them out." So, but yeah, he was one of the whiz kids, and now he has a big investment firm, and they just go around investing in startups.
Makes sense.
That's the cool thing about Silicon Valley. It's a lot of millionaires. Their product just got so big in grad school, they just sold it for like 30 or 40 million, and they never went public. So you never heard those guys, but they had some widget that the big companies wanted, so they just bought it for 20, 30 million and put it in there. So
I was just thinking, I saw a post earlier today when you brought up the VCs.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about talking to like small business owners. They said, stop applying for all these accelerators and just build a business that either sells a product or provides a service, right, to make some money. And then I thought about it. There was a quote from Mark Cuban, and he said, the worst place to get money is from other people. The best place to get money is from either your own pockets or from your customers' pockets. And I thought about it, and I was like, for a lot of these small businesses that keep going to like the VC firms and they get investments from like big companies, Google, Amazon is an example. Just know that they have their own requirements and stipulations if they do give you some money. So if you don't follow what they say, that money that they gave you, they could potentially take your business from you, and you'll be on the outside looking in.
But the other part, that's 100% true. But when you work with those big companies, especially Amazon, Azure, they give you infinite compute power. That's why ChatGPT sold. They couldn't afford to. They couldn't afford to run the compute power. So what they get, like $400 million and infinite compute power, right? So there's a balance. So I agree with Mark. If you got money to support it, you get to a certain level, and it's like, especially you talking about AI. So they like, dude, I get with Microsoft, get 300-400 million, and I get infinite compute power. So, but that sound good, but you can run out of money quick, man. So
yeah, I get you, but then also, what's stopping you from running out of other people's money? Then you see what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but I think with Microsoft, they came up with that. Microsoft really wanted them, so I think because they got Azure, they're like, just run on Azure. And two, for Microsoft, that's the kind of things you want to run Azure, because you can tell other customers, hey, we run a ChatGPT, so you can run your artificial large language models on us because we already doing it, right? So I think for them, it's a win-win. You're not going to run out of Microsoft money, B2B. There's companies that don't run out of money, man. That's infinite money, big dog. You before the billions, Microsoft got Microsoft, Amazon, Cuban, Elon. Them dudes don't run out of money, man. Them dudes got money.
you.
Nah, but I feel what you said. Nah, them dudes are, especially Microsoft, because for them that's a key customer. So for them, they're winning because they're in AI. They AI think suck compared to ChatGPT. So they spend it in money. So for them, it's like you talked about. It's easier for them to buy than to create that.
Yeah, like Copilot, I think.
Yeah, Copilot. It was decent, but ChatGPT on top. But so they just bought it.
Mm-hmm. And then I think we brought this up before about the reasons why companies would use like Azure over another customer is because like they have everything packaged together.
Yeah.
So
what they did was smart is most companies are running Outlook, SharePoint, and all that. So to put it in the cloud is easier, and they give you a nice discount.
Mm-hmm.
So you get Teams. I think I paid for my Teams because I'm doing some others. I'm trying to do a GRC app, but I say that every other week. I think I paid $20 and I get out most of all that stuff, and I can run at a low level and build anything I want for pennies on a dollar. So, so yeah. But two is Microsoft and especially Amazon and Oracle. Shout out to Mark Zuckerberg and shout out to Snapchat. When somebody come up to you and offer you $400 million, are you going to take it? Snapchat turned down $800 million. I told my son, if he ever turned down $800 million, I'm going to punch him in his throat. We take that 800, we'll build something later, right? So that's kind of hard to turn down $1 billion, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have sold that so quick, I'd have been on another island in the tropics or something. I'd have been in Brazil somewhere in Colombia with the passport bros. No, I'm just joking. Shout out to the passport bros.
Wasn't there a company recently that turned down a accusation, Google trying to purchase them?
Probably. There's a few crazy people out there.
Yeah, it's
which one?
It's like some type of mapping navigation app of some sort, like Wazoo or something like that, or.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's the cool thing. There's always something being created that's always hot, man. I mean, because you got to think AI been around for forever, but ChatGPT kind of made it useful for everybody, man. So yeah, PBO could get $1 million. I'm out of here, man. I don't need much, man. A couple million.
Retired.
I'm done, man. So shit, they talking about.
Oh yeah.
What was 400?
So back in July, Wiz turned down $23 billion offer from Google.
I don't even know what to say to that, man. I think I'm gonna shut down the stream on that, man. That's crazy, man.
That's a lot of money,
man. I mean, I don't even know how to get that out, man. But I guess if somebody offered that to you, you know you worth it. But shit, I'm cashing out ASAP. I don't even want to work anymore. I don't want no title in the firm. If y'all need me, just call me consult, man. I'm gonna be in Brazil somewhere with Austin Hollerman. Ain't that it? Me and Austin Hollerman gonna be hanging out, man.
So the crazy part is, I mean, this would be another good one for you to do a video on because it literally the title here.
Man, give it a B2B. Why you give me video?
Well, B2B can do it too. So the headline on this one says the CEO and co-founder of the cybersecurity startup Wiz.io told employees the company will remain independent and aims for $1 billion in annual recurring revenue and a public stock offering as its next big goals, after turning down $23 billion from Google's deal.
Put it in the chat, man. I don't even want to talk. I can't do that. That's going to depress me for the rest of October. I'm like, what dumbass is going to turn out $23 billion, man? Dude,
I mean,
come on, man.
You know what's interesting? I don't know if you've ever watched that movie, Acrimony. DBO, have you ever watched that?
I think that's yeah. Oh yeah. That's a Tyler Perry movie, ain't it?
It is, but it's also
different.
He was the guy. He was an inventor.
Yeah, but she left him. Yep, I seen that. At the movies. Yeah.
And then that's what they were saying. Oh yeah, they gave him like it's like several thousand or several million or something like that. And then he turned it down. He's like, no, my invention is worth way more than what you're offering at this big company. He had been working on it his whole life. This invention.
Then it finally
And
hit. Yeah.
and it finally hit, and they gave him even more money. So I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to turn it down so that way they can get a better offer, because the first offer isn't always the best. Is what they're saying.
At 23
What they're thinking.
billion, that's the best offer. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
23
billion.
billion.
Yes.
23 billion. Nah, but let me get Chris off mute with his hard typing. Let me get him back off mute with his super hard typing. Go ahead, Chris, if you want to talk. Muted you with your hard typing.
Oh no, it's all good. Yeah, I was going to say that 23 billion. Myself and everybody else here would be retiring with that. I mean it's a lot of money. That is a lot of money.
That's crazy amount of money, man. Let me see if I'm.
But I wonder what strings come attached.
I don't care.
23. You don't care?
I'm leaving. He can put all the strings on it. He won't. I'm gone, man. He can do whatever he want to do, man. I want all those strings. Go ahead. All the smoke. I want all the strings. Let me see. Let's see. Rhonda's in there. I didn't see her. Let me give her a little wrench. She in the GRC family. Where's my little ad moderator?
Yeah, I don't really see the big details on it, but the company was only valuated at 12 billion and they were offered 23 billion. I mean, honestly, like my outlook on that is like Google's obviously threatened by them. So
yeah, but I have a different take. They're threatened by them, but they have infinite money. Google can go at them. Google can make whatever they can make, but I'm just gonna give you $1 billion. Let me get it, man. 23 billion.
That's actually true. Yeah. They looked at their checkbooks and they're like, oh, we're just going to go ahead and pay him off for 23 billion and it's not a problem. Or now, they're like, oh, we'll just throw, $250 billion at it and we're good to go.
Yeah, we can. And the sad thing is they can hire half their staff. We can double your salary. Y'all staying with them or coming with us, man. So you got to be careful, man. Sometimes you think they threaten. It's just $1. It's a business decision. Do we want to build it or can we just buy it, right? And when you got infinite money,
more cost effective.
Yeah, you can just buy it.
It's a really good point. Yeah, I'm gonna hop off of here, but I'll talk to you guys later.
Yep, I'll see you tomorrow at the GRC. Study GRC.
Salute.
All right.
Salute, Chris. But yeah, PBO, I think I'm about to head on out too, man. I just wanted to come up here, give you some good news,
I appreciate
and also tell you that, man, I am looking forward to working with AWS, kind of like get some behind the scenes, and then also learn some more about system design, man. I don't know if you've seen it before, but there's a newsletter out there called Bytes.
I get it every day. Yep.
Okay.
I'm using those for system design. We can talk offline. AWS events, they got novice, mid-level, and the expert level. They break down system design. So I'm actually start doing that from a GRC perspective, because I'm gonna do the standard 3-tier. Serverless is real big. Then really what I got to get in 2025 is that Kubernetes and Dockers. Everybody's containering it. So I got to definitely get a better understanding of containers. I went to an AWS event. They were talking about growing vertical plants that rotate, and they were using AWS Internet of Things to watch the plants, take pictures of the plants, machine learning. So if you grow into tomatoes, it could tell you what type of tomatoes, and if they're brown or a certain color, they could tell it to give it more oxygen or nitrogen. So they were using that along with Internet of Things to help you grow vertical plants to heal yourself. I was like, oh, that was kind of a little different. So, and they were running containers. He was running Kubernetes containers in there. And I was a little light on that. Yeah, give me a smash the like button for y'all cut out.
Right.
but yeah, no, I appreciate you for coming up. Yeah, we definitely chat. Like I said, I'm gonna do some more AWS stuff. I think I'm gonna do lunch and learn Fridays with AWS. So
okay.
Start breaking down the service.
I'm looking forward to PBO, and I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, appreciate you.
Good luck in the chat.
Yeah, good luck and congratulations. Bigger things ahead for you. I see you.
Yes, sir.
I want to appreciate everybody for joining me. PBO about to go to bed. He got to get up and go to work in the morning. So I've struggled streaming today, so I'm going to shut it down. And if you need anything from me, just reach out to me. I'm also on LinkedIn. Saw my government name earlier. Let me show that. You can reach out to me here or ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. I'm always chopping it up. And once again, if you reach out to me, you need to talk to me for a couple minutes, we can always link up on LinkedIn. Usually I drop the link in here in Restream, but it'll be a private conversation between me and you. I'm ready when you're ready. Facts. Yeah, if I got 23 billion, I might, I'm not coming back, but shout out to Dale, shout out to my man Larry. And I appreciate Larry for hooking me up with combo courses. We had a great interview on Saturday. It was 2.5 hours long. We was definitely chopping it up. Thanks. Shout out to Regine, always supporting me. That's it. I'm out. Everybody have a good night. Have a happy hump day tomorrow. Let's go. This year is flying and almost over. Once again, I appreciate you.